When it comes to the North Canton government workforce, there's been a lot of cuts
Yes.
over the years.
Yes.
And the candidate for mayor opposing Mayor Held says there's been too many cuts, that you have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Would you agree with that observation?
Well, your manpower is a function of your revenue. Back in the day when we had Hoover, we had a luxury of having a larger workforce. We don't have Hoover anymore, and we haven't recovered those jobs. I think part of the whole process is that the mayor, by charter, provides the council with a budget. So the new mayor, whoever it is, should be by spring, by May, providing a budget, and a budget's driven by available revenue.
Speaking about available revenue, and I think you alluded to this earlier in your answer, the relationship between the schools and city government over the Northridge Place abatement could have financial implications for the city of North Canton if the school issue, which is a 0.75 earned income tax plus a bond issue, passes. My take, and speaking only for myself, is that maybe more than a few government officials, elected officials, do not want to see the school taxes pass because it hems North Canton city government in terms of any future revenue increases. How do you see that whole thing?
Well, let me preface your question by disclosing that Mrs. Revoldt taught in the North Canton system for 30 years. Both of my daughters received excellent educations there, participated in sports. I have a huge amount of respect for the district. The larger question is, and let me just take a step back. I certainly understand where the board is coming from and the need for facilities and for operating revenue. I think one of the things that concerns me well, there are actually two things that concern me. The first is that when you look at the residents below Orion, south of Orion, and that apparently is the midline of the district, most of those residents live very modest lives. They live in simple homes. Many of those homes are 60 or 70 years old. I was at one yesterday where it was very clear that the mother was a stay-at-home mom. She had 3 kids under 8, had a dad. Obviously, dad was working somewhere. I worry about the impact that this proposal has upon that family. Back in 2007, when I went on council, the mayor wanted to raise income tax. Alex Zumbar and I did an analysis of an imaginary family on Lipton. We built it around the median income that was in the census. We gave them a couple kids. We gave them a couple jobs. And what we discovered was that poor family had no disposable income at the end of the year. They couldn't buy a hot water heater. And so that sticks with me as I look at this. It's not a question of whether the residents of St. Ives or St. James can afford it. In my view, it's a question, can the residents of Lipton or Maple Crest afford it? So that's going to get worked out. And only those residents know whether they can do it. So the vote's pretty critical here. The second is, and I'm not sure that the school, and I know Superintendent Wendorf didn't mention this the other day when he appeared in council, but for every small businessman who has a staff and is not tied by ownership to a location in North Canton, I fear that that tax may, and I underscore may, drive them outside the city. if you look at Canton, when Canton's income tax hit 2, there was a veritable exodus out of the city of Canton.
And just to interject here, a good part of the North Canton system includes Lake Township,
Yes.
where I live. And of course, in Lake Township, we have no income tax.
That's correct.
So that's going to be quite a jolt for the residents of Southern Lake to.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the other issues is, and again, I don't have a feel for it because I don't live up in St. Ives or St. James, but many of the people who live in that area, those areas, work in Cleveland or Akron or the city of Canton, and the city of Akron, for example, has a 2.25% income tax. Factor in another 3/4, they're going to be at 3. That's not inexpensive. And I know there was an argument it's tax. If you're preparing deductions, that you could write it off. But frankly, the proposals that I've read about in Washington about tax reform are going to eliminate the state and local government deduction. So it may be there, and people may end up paying it. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it sorts itself out.
Okay, so you come across to me as saying that income tax increases, whether the school issue passes or not, is dicey in North Canton.
You have to be very, very careful. And you just don't want to go willy-nilly. This goes back to your earlier comment about downsizing our workforce. I mean, we did it in 2008 for a reason. It was because we didn't have revenue because of Hoover's departure. And I would love to see us back up in the 130 person range if we could get there, but I'm not sure we can afford it. So I'm not unsympathetic to candidate Kelly's vision. It's just a question of dollars and cents.